On April 14th, 2012, I was raped by a boy I'd been casually seeing in the garage of one of my co-workers at a party. I'll call my rapist Jay. Jay didn't look at my face the whole time. He was too drunk to notice that I was frozen in fear. He didn't realise that he was leaving bruises. He didn't even know what he'd done until 2 days later. But I want to talk about the reaction that I got afterwards when I told people what had happened. I was already very isolated. I'd moved far away from my school friends, and my best friend had been growing more distant each day. The first person I told was the co-worker that had hosted the party, who I'll call M. He did all the right things at the beginning. He told me that it wasn't my fault. He told Jay that he needed to stay away that day. And he told me that he believed me. I told him because I trusted him, and I felt like I had no one else to turn to. I stayed at his house that night, and I asked him if I could sleep next to him. I told him that I wasn't there for sex. I had just been having nightmares and needed some comfort. He initiated sex that night anyway. We ended up staying together for over a year. The thing with M was that he was always convinced that he knew best. He always thought that he knew the best way to help, even when I was asking him to help me in other ways. He was so concerned with being right, so certain that he knew the answer to everything, that because he had my best interests at heart, that he knew what was best for me. But he didn't know what was best for me, because he wasn't listening to what I was asking of him. As much as my healing process wasn't his responsibility, he took it upon himself to make me better. But he was so focused on doing and saying what he thought needed to be done and said, without actually knowing what he was doing or talking about, that it made things so much worse for me in the long run. He refused to call my experience rape. He called it a terrible misunderstanding. He wouldn't confront his housemates when they invited Jay to events that they knew I'd be attending, even though they knew what he had done. He would get frustrated when I wouldn't go into the garage where I was raped. He would tell me to stop reading stories from other rape survivors. When I went to the police, the first thing he said to me when I told him where I was, and I told him they had ignored me, was, "I could have told you that would happen." He undermined my hurt every step of the way. Having people undermine my experience was one of the biggest obstacles to getting the help that I needed then and still need today. Every time someone asks a question that begins with why were you there in the first place? Why did you stay? Why didn't you say no? It feels like a judgment, and it feels like blame. It made me feel like I wasn't deserving of the help that I needed. It was exhausting trying to convince the people that I was seeking help from that I really needed it, which made it impossible for me to feel that I deserved their help. If you find yourself in a situation where somebody trusts you enough to confide in you, you need to be aware that your reaction can make a massive impact on the survivor's healing process. It takes a huge amount of strength for someone to talk about their trauma, and you should let them take the lead during their healing process. Validate their feelings and emotions instead of trying to gloss over them. And if you aren't sure what to do or say, don't be afraid to say something like, "I don't know what the best way to help you right now is." But do be willing to follow it up with something like, "But if you want, I'd like to help you find someone who knows better than me, so we can work on getting you through this."